Good afternoon, and welcome to the Boise Metro Chamber's Metro Minute, your quick guide to business impact. My name is Tori Thomas, Community and Government Affairs Manager here at the Chamber, and your host for today's event. The Boise Metro Chamber is Idaho's only 5-star accredited chamber and represents nearly 2,000 members. We are only able to provide current events and educational content because of our members and their commitment to our community. Before I introduce our speaker for today, I want to thank Hawley Troxell for their generous support. Please enjoy this quick video from our sponsor.
I'm Tom Mortel, co-managing partner of Hawley Troxell. Our firm is proud to be the sponsor of the Boise Metro Chamber's Metro Minute. In the 6 communities we serve throughout Idaho and eastern Washington, we have the pleasure of providing legal services to great companies, large and small. Similar to the Chamber, we represent companies from Main Street businesses to some of the largest corporations in our area. We appreciate the opportunity to advocate on their behalf as a part of the Chamber's advocacy program and to further the Chamber's efforts to advocate on behalf of its members. Welcome to the Metro Minute. Please enjoy today's presentation.
For today's episode, we are joined by the City of Meridian's Mayor, Robert Simison.
Hi, Tori.
Hello, how are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, and I'm happy to be speaking to the Boise business community today, as well as others.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you being here. I'm going to do a quick bio, and then we'll get into some questions. Mayor Robert Simison, a Pocatello native and Whitman College graduate, was elected Meridian's 26th mayor in 2019. He focuses on public safety, transportation improvements, and enhancing community amenities. Under his leadership, Meridian has expanded road projects, added fire stations and a police precinct, and implemented programs like the Crisis Intervention Team and elementary school resource officers. He is committed to making Meridian a family-friendly place to live, work, and play, with projects like Discovery Park expansion and investments in recreation facilities. Mayor Simison, his wife Jenny, and their 3 children enjoy skiing together throughout Idaho. I also like skiing, so we have that in common. Thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate you and the work that you've done in Meridian, but overall our state.
Well, thank you. And people may or may not know that I tore my Achilles skiing last year. And so I was a shortened season, but the snow has me excited, and I've been doing my PT regularly, so I should be good to go very soon.
Oh, good. Oh my gosh, that is so stressful and unfortunate. Did you do it during you did it while you skied? Yeah.
Yeah. Why I was skiing, so one of the few.
Oh my gosh. I'm knocking on wood. I've never been injured while I'm a boarder. So I guess I should say ski, but I'm a boarder and I've never been injured, but I'm knocking on wood. So because that is scary. Well, let's jump into some questions. So obviously you're here representing Meridian, and Meridian has grown as well. I mean, Idaho in general has grown, but Meridian has seen a ton of changes over the last 10, 15 years. What are certain strategies that you've implemented to manage that growth effectively?
Well, strategies, there's so many different ways you can look at growth. And when I came into office, I started talking about what we call responsible growth. Meridian, as we've grown, we've got a lot of farm to market roads. They've kind of, made it hard for us to effectively create connectivity, provide services, because you'd have, one area that would connect, but the other wouldn't want to annex yet. And so you would get certain parts of your community that just didn't have that connectivity in those services. So we really wanted to say, well, where are we seeing a good amount of growth, and how do we help provide services in those areas? And so we kind of identified some growth priority areas. Number one was downtown, because it is just smart to grow from your core. Make sure if you have got the capacity, because all your services exist there, try to encourage growth in that area where we have an urban rural district, and where City Hall was put to help spur and continue that downtown growth and development. So that was kind of like that very first thing. But then we also said, where's the private sector growing? And it was really south, east, and northwest Meridian. That's where we saw development want to go. It's where the sewer was there, partially extended by development, partially extended by the city. And we just started working with our partners. We prioritized getting roads built by Ada County Highway District in those areas. We've prioritized putting in our own public works infrastructure. We've put a fire station in both of those two areas. We put Discovery Park in Southeast Meridian. We put a police precinct up in Northwest Meridian. And we worked with our partners at Ada County for EMS services to be co-located in our new fire stations. One of those is currently operational. The other one, I know they're just looking for more resources to make that one operational. So those were kind of the basic level stuff. But in a lot of ways, growth is impacted by the availability to get sewer. We had a sewer project that's called the McDermott Trunk Line. It's a big project in Meridian. And in talking with our public works team, we said, let's hold back on, instead of doing 1 year, taking 1 year off, 1 year off for that project over 10 years, let's just hold and do the project all at once. Let's wait 5 years to do it. That way we could stay focused on those other growth priority areas that we already had before we opened up other parts of the community for potential growth. So it's not just where you deploy, but where you also hold back your investment in resources that could really help us make good, smart decisions.
Thank you. So many layers to it. And, you see the growth. And I think I grew up in West Boise. And so going into Meridian all the time, it was like, oh my gosh, like this is going up and this is going up. And I guess you could say that about downtown Boise as well. It just is amazing. But then you think about all the actual things that go into when the buildings are built and all the people that are at play. So it's really an amazing process. So obviously with all of that growth comes a demand for housing. How has Meridian addressed the housing demand and then also the affordability of housing?
Well, I think I kind of mentioned this in the first question, but really staying focused on what the market is saying is there. A lot of people have talked about seeing the apartments that have come up in Meridian over the last several years. Many of those were approved many years ago, and the market really drove when the time was right for those to actually be built. And the location really matters because, Overland and Franklin are two of our corridors that have really been identified in the future for either high capacity, whether it's transit or some version thereof. And so that's where you see a lot of the multifamily housing that's gone in. And so those were really market-based decisions about what was needed in our community because we were primarily single-family residential, and we still are. So it's pretty much an 80-20 split in our community between those two. So working with the private sector, finding those places really is kind of when you talk about that level. But we've stayed focused on staying in our lane about what we can control. If development was going into the areas where we had services, I think that the council had a very willingness to approve good projects that followed our comprehensive plan, but help provide the housing that was there. We understand there's all sorts of housing needs at all different levels, but focusing on one versus the other, it's really what were people bringing forward and how could we make sure that if they came online, we were doing the best we could to provide the services that people would need. One of the specific things that happened over the last several years was, there was an opportunity for using ARPA dollars to help do a project called the Woodrose Apartments here in our community, which is stuff that was being done for that workforce housing. So the council did authorize $400,000 to help that project move forward. So by looking at the opportunities, letting the market lead where things made sense, following our comp plan to do that. And, that's kind of how we've gone. But now kind of looking forward, we just approved our housing standards. That means that we don't have minimums in our code for the size of house on a property. Traditionally in certain zoning codes, you may have had a requirement that a house was at least 1,200 square feet. Those codes have now gone away. So, if you want to do a 600 square foot house in those areas, you can, and that can really impact the affordability. Also, like many people, we've done work on accessory dwelling units that go on there. But I think the one that's going to have the biggest bang for its buck moving forward is the housing size minimums and codes being removed, because it really allows the size of a house to be built that people can afford, and the development community will incorporate those in as they see fit with their projects.
That's awesome. Yeah, again, so many layers to all that you're doing, and that's really cool that you updated that and that there's more opportunities for smaller homes, and maybe more opportunities for different people to be able to afford to buy a house and not need all of that space. So that's great. Well, what about transportation and infrastructure projects? I'm sure you guys are constantly looking at that as you continue to see traffic and so many great businesses and parks and everything going on. Do you have anything to update us on that?
Well, I'll say this. We've been doing city surveys for as long as I've worked here at the city, and every single city survey we've done, transportation has been the number one issue that our residents have identified as their biggest need in our community. And, I understand that there's a lot of different nuances to transportation. People look at it, but, people in Meridian have said they would like their roads and intersections widened. So that's what we've really tried to focus on is, where do we need to see those road improvements taking place and getting those widenings? And that's what our focus with ACHD has been on. But connectivity has also been a big component to that. And, since I've been here, we've seen the 10-mile interchange built. We've seen Meridian interchange rebuilt. We saw Locust Grove go in, and we've seen the impacts of all of those. And so really for about the last 6 years, the city's been advocating for the Linda Road overpass to move forward, to help create another connection over the interstate that will allow that north-south connection, and those ones like Locust Grove, when they're not on the interchange, they really are allowing the free flowing of people within our community to get to where they need to go. If they don't need to access the interstate, or they're not going south to Kuna or north to Eagle, you can avoid those areas. And so that overpass, which is scheduled for phase 1 in February of 2025 to begin. We hope that it's going to be done by 2027, that summer 2027. But that, widening the blender as well as the bridge connection is going to be huge for Meridian. I just toured the West Ada Bus Barn earlier this morning, and they were talking about the importance that that connection is going to have for their drivers and the ability to get, their buses north and south here in the community, again, avoiding some of those more congested areas. In addition, we've been working with ITD on safety improvements to the Eagle Corridor. People probably heard and seen those, both from the speed as well as access limitations in order to try to make that area safer. Highway 16, while that hasn't been a city-led project by any stretch of the imagination, it's going to impact our community hugely. And so it's going to pull a lot off of 10 Mile once it's built. Because a lot of people get off at 10 Mile and they only drive 10 Mile down to get on Highway 16 up off of Chinden, or they'll access other parts of Meridian off of Black Cat, because that's really the best place to get off. That's going to change that. And so it's really going to ease congestion in our community. So we're excited to see that project moving forward, and hopefully in 2026 be open and usable along the way. Those are kind of been the big things that we've been focused on, but just really working with our development community. We've seen improvements down south around Discovery Park, where Brighton has really, built 2 miles of road from Meridian Road over to Eagle Road along Lake Hazel. And ACHD helped us prioritize the Eagle Road, did a mile of Eagle from Victory to Amity, and they're currently doing the next mile from Amity down to Lake Hazel. So building out these corridors to our places in our community, which are really our gathering points, like Discovery Park. ACHD has USTIC as a corridor that they're advancing projects, getting people out to Owyhee High School. Those are some of those things that we've really been working on to support getting the infrastructure necessary, such as transportation, into the areas where we're growing, as well as to our important community gathering spots.
That's awesome. Thank you for all of those updates. The 10-mile stretch and the, getting off onto 10 Mile it's life-changing for so many people. I live near the airport, but I have family out kind of towards Emmett, and I can't tell you how much that has impacted so positively. And I'm sure so many people utilize that. And then, like you mentioned, 16. And so being able to have, more continued connectivity will be so impactful for everybody and just make it more safe and enjoyable to be on the road. So, well, you mentioned it in your response just now, but also in your bio, you've obviously done so much work for public services and making sure that your whole city is taken care of. Can you share with us a little bit of your work maintaining public services like schools and healthcare and emergency responses?
Yeah, well, I can start with the last one because that's really kind of that government area in terms of the emergency response with EMS. But yeah, we definitely have been working with Ada County to try to co-locate EMS services in our fire stations. And that's a taxpayer savings for everybody. They don't have to go build the facilities. They were a contributor to the construction of the facilities, but a pretty small amount in comparison to what the city did for those areas. But really what it's doing is getting our services closer to where people need them. So trying to expand into the EMS. I think in a lot of ways, we've had a lot of hospital projects which have been discussed in Meridian, especially up along that Highway 16 Chinden area. And so our partners here in the community with St. Luke's, St. Al's, West Valley, Primary Health, they've all been making investment in bringing the healthcare services to our community. So luckily for us, we haven't really had to go out and try to entice people to find those locations because they understand, they know the demographics, and they are committed to making those investments that will help them be better providers here in the Treasure Valley. But we have to provide the access and look at the opportunities and work with them to help make that happen. West Ada is definitely in a different situation. They have been getting funding from the state legislature, which I really applaud the initial investment the legislature has made to help them pay down their bonds. They've also recently, I think, we're going to be receiving about $140 million that can go either towards school infrastructure or repair. And I think that there's also another report that they've got $1 billion in repairs needed throughout all their facilities. So it's not going to go as far as we would hope, but it is a good start and it's a good investment. So we work with them on what their needs are. We understand where they are having some of the biggest challenges because while they are having declining enrollment in numbers, there are certain parts of our community, again, Northeast, Southwest, where those aren't necessarily the issues that they're having. So, they're making those tough decisions about how to best invest the dollars to address the issues that are in those growth areas, as well as, the other areas where they just need to make investments overall to help make things happen. But, by working together, we have had a great ability to keep West Ada moving forward. As was mentioned, the SROs that were in the elementary schools, it was a great partnership that we've been able to do with them, and we're happy and excited to see that continue.
Great. Well, continuing our conversation about connectivity, you recently did a Boise Dev panel with the City of Boise's Mayor, Lauren McLean. Can you share with us a couple of collaborative efforts that you've done with maybe specifically Boise, but also any other of our connecting communities?
Yeah, I think really the main thing that we've all been having conversation about is the impact of rail to the valley. The Caldwell, Nampa, Boise, Meridian specifically, because we have the line that runs along through our communities, the one here, but also the one that they're talking about coming out of Salt Lake, the Pioneer that could come up and serve. So, and that's also important in Mountain Home. So through the Treasure Valley Partnership, which meets regularly, that's a meeting with the mayors of the Ada and Canyon County, as well as Mayor Sykes down in Mountain Home. We have regular conversations about the values of these type of projects. I don't think anyone of us have prescribed exactly what it is that we should have, but I think we all recognize where we have east-west connections, that the importance that rail will play in our future. We don't know how and when. It's really, quite frankly, it's an issue that the state of Idaho has to be the leader on. Idaho Transportation Department, it really falls under their purview to, work on rail, but the legislature's also got to find a way to fund it. So we talk about the value that we see. And I mentioned this during that Boise Dev conversation, was like, to me, it really starts with, level setting expectations on the value of public transit. All transportation is subsidized, whether it's the roads we drive on today or public transit. We are all paying for the use of that. It doesn't, the amount of money we pay on our gas tax and registration fees doesn't cover all the costs for those roads. There are property tax dollars that fund our roads that we drive on, no different than right now. Some of the property tax dollars people pay to Meridian, we're spending on transit. It's all part of the system that you want to be smart and make good investments so that you can have stuff that works, because you need certain things in certain areas or moving in certain directions to really help the long-term viability of our community. So I think really with the rail through the valley is really kind of that key component to the conversations that we have with the other mayors here. I think we're all interested in moving something forward and working together on that.
That's exciting. That's awesome. I'm glad that you guys all connect and talk about what all of our communities need and, what the market needs. I think public transportation is obviously such a huge conversation because one size doesn't fit all. And there's so many opportunities that we could look into. So I think it's obviously a really great conversation. We appreciate the work that you and all the other mayors do. So before we close out this conversation today, I'd love to just ask you what your vision is for Meridian over the next, 5-10 years. What are you hoping to see?
Well, from a very practical standpoint, our vision is to be a safe community focused on families. That's where it all starts. And Meridian has long been the family community. That's how it was viewed. That's why West Ada grew so quickly. A lot of people would move out here with their families. We've also aged as a community, and family dynamics have changed. Family now includes grandparents who have moved to the community. But it's the focus on what type of community we want to have, the values that we adhere to as a community, to really set that investment strategy, how we want our parks to look and feel, how we want our neighborhoods to function. And so I think we're still going to stay focused, that family focused on a safe community. That being said, you can't just be great in your services. You got to have jobs. And I've talked about this in my State of the City, that really want to be focused on being the medical epicenter of the state of Idaho. We have ISU Meridian here in our community, and they have the healthcare mandate from the state. But we also have seen the articles recently that talked about ISU's interest in purchasing ICOM, which we have the current medical school in the state of Idaho. So I think that's the linchpin conversation of what Meridian's future is. We've got St. Luke's at Eagle. They've got enough land there for years to develop however they would like. You've got a potential expansion of ISU's campus and maybe a long-term purchase of ICOM that really can connect that. And so being the medical epicenter in Idaho, that's where Meridian is headed. We're going to have those things that are going to draw that attention here. And I think that's doing what we can do as a city, over the next 5 to 10 years to help make that transition happen, whether it's providing, better connectivity or something else. We need to continue to work on in that area. And I'll end with this, and that's, our downtown. One of the things I've done, as we talked about, is we've created a minimum height for buildings in downtown if you're going to do more than a single family home. that's 35 feet. I think that our downtown, we don't have a big downtown, and we're not asking for huge changes, but we are asking for a little bit more vertical opportunities like we've seen here in our downtown. With the lofts right here, the project's been completed. We do have a stalled project in downtown that we're hoping to see that move forward and kind of continue that evolution of our downtown over time. How do we keep it, still that great walkability, but also, understand that we do need to have that infill and that investment in our downtown to create the viability that we want to see.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the work that you do, and the Boise Chamber loves our partnership with Meridian, and thank you for your commitment to your community as well as our state. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Tori. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thank you to our viewership. We appreciate you joining us today. Thank you to our sponsor, Hawley Troxell, along with our media partners, Idaho Ed News, Idaho Capital Sun, and Idaho Press. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next Metro Minute.